everybody, I'm Priya Guliani, an impact entrepreneur and UK president for Government Blockchain Association. I also lead Sustainable Environmental Stewardship Working Group. I'm passionate about sustainability, climate impact, and inclusion, and bringing a positive change to the world using the power of technology. Before I address the topic sustainable aquaculture, I will answer the first question that everybody asks me. Why am I talking about aquaculture? And the answer is simple. I care about our oceans and I care about our planet. Our oceans have been generous to us. They generate oxygen, help protect us from the sun's heat, provide food and livelihoods to millions of people, and serve humanity in myriad other ways. In return, we are destroying these nurseries for marine life by overharvesting fish and polluting the waters with untreated sewage and plastics. Marine ecosystems are now threatened by extinction, and over the past 50 years, the world has lost nearly half of its coral reefs and mangrove forests, while marine populations have halved and the global fish stocks depleted by a third. It is widely accepted that even consuming small quantities of seafood can have a significant positive nutrition impact for people of all ages. These health benefits, along with population growth, rising incomes, and increased urbanization, are changing dietary preferences and have resulted in a strong global consumption trend for animal proteins. According to the FAO, people have never consumed as much fish as they do today. The plateauing of wild capture fisheries has put a strong onus on aquaculture to meet most of the world's increasing need for seafood products. The astonishing part, just 2% of all the food that we eat comes from the sea. This is despite our oceans covering more than 70% of the Earth's surface. Again, the FAO has evidence that the industry is rising to the challenge and growing faster than any other major food production sector. Sustainably meeting this demand will include growing more seafood with less impact on natural systems. If the global food system is to meet this challenge without imposing untenable environmental costs, the seafood sector and aquaculture in particular will have a critical role to play. Also, I've always wondered why aquaculture never gets discussed in forums outside of WaterTech, Ocean Summit, etc. And hence, to break those barriers, I'm here to talk about sustainable aquaculture in the Digital Week, and I'm grateful to the organizers for giving voice to 20.5 million people working in the aquaculture industry. Now let's address the second obvious question. A lot of people care about oceans and planet, and yet we don't hear about sustainable aquaculture or even aquaculture quite often. In fact, there are a lot of people who are not even aware about aquaculture. So how really big is the industry? Well, to set some perspective, aquaculture has reached a market size of more than $265 billion globally already and is further growing by 6% annually. Aquaculture directly affects the success of 7 out of 17 SDGs and significantly influences the outcome of several other goals and targets related to economic growth and employment, gender equality, empowerment of women, access to resources, responsible consumption and production, etc. It is expected that by 2030, 60% of the global fish consumption will come from aquaculture. And hence, aquaculture is far from being just a niche. So before we deep dive, I would like to answer some more questions. So what is aquaculture? Aquaculture is the commercial production of finfish, shellfish, and seaweed and is currently the fastest growing form of food production on Earth. Aquaculture is fast becoming a dominant part of the global food production and rapidly increasing share of the seafood industry by both volume as well as value, representing roughly half of all seafood produced for human consumption. Aquaculture predominantly occurs within Asia, but substantial growth is now developing in other regions as well. So, what is sustainable aquaculture? A sustainable aquaculture industry is competitive, market oriented, and environment and resource friendly, and that supplies safe seafood of good quality. And what would sustainability truly mean for it? So, sustainability incorporates four aspects: economic viability, environmental integrity, social license, and technical feasibility. When we talk about economic viability, it requires that aquaculture operations be profitable over time and be competitive. When we talk of environmental integrity, it requires that negative impacts be mitigated, thereby enabling farmers to continue production at the same time, at the same site over time. Social licensing means the degree to which aquaculture is accepted by neighboring communities and wider society. And then finally, technical feasibility would mean that inputs such as seed and growing conditions are adapted to local conditions. And then finally, the most important question is that how do we achieve sustainability in aquaculture? Let's find out. To achieve and unlock a true blue revolution, few things need to happen. Effective governance of modern aquaculture must reconcile ecological and human well-being so that the industry is sustainable over time. Without effective governance, there will be misallocation of resources and perhaps stagnation of the industry and irreversible environmental damage. In the fisheries and aquaculture, considerable finance is needed to protect and grow the global blue economy and to meet the ocean-related sustainable development goals. Increasing the access of small-scale aquaculture farmers to insurance will benefit all stakeholders, that is, fish farmers, insurers, and other actors in the value chain, and as the government as well. Finally, with new and improved technologies, sustainable methods of aquaculture can now be used to fulfill the demand for fish without tapping our sea's resources or harming delicate ecosystems. Let's talk about effective governance first. The next decade is likely to see major changes in the natural environment, resource availability, macroeconomic conditions, international trade rules and tariffs, market characteristics, and social conduct, which may affect production, markets, and trade. Climate variability and change, including the frequency and the extent of extreme weather events, are expected to have significant and geographically differential impacts on the availability, processing, and trade of fish and fish products, making countries more vulnerable to risks. These risks can be exacerbated by poor governance, causing environmental degradation and habitat destruction, leading to pressure on the resource spaces, overfishing, diseases, etc. Aquaculture issues associated with the accessibility and availability of sites and water resources and access to credit, seeds, and expertise. However, these risks can obviously be mitigated through responsive and effective governance. We need a policy environment focused on some of these things. So let's talk about processes and regulations first. Developing transparent, effective, and protective permitting processes and regulations will allow protection against issuance of permits to operators employing practices that degrade ecosystems or undermine businesses. Enforcements of protection of assets from theft or vandalism and maintenance of environmental standards. And permits should be obtained within a reasonable amount of time. So that's quite important. Secondly, establishing a strong, well-defined and legally tested property rights and resource tenure guidelines for aquaculture operations. We obviously need a strong infrastructure, developing and enabling infrastructure to support sector development such as transportation, storage, sanitation, energy and water. Insufficient infrastructure can be a major development constraint for capital-intensive, innovative business model, example, offshore aquaculture. Now, it's really important that we basically create special programs to promote sustainable innovation, such as establishment of government programs with properly structured incentives that promote industry engagement in moonshot undertakings. And then finally, establishing public finance mechanisms such as low interest loan programs and crop disaster insurance programs to build up key industries or de risk sustainable practices. The second important thing for sustainable blue economy is the impact investment. In an investment that seeks to generate a positive social or environmental benefit as well as a financial return. Sustainable aquaculture provides a compelling impact investment opportunity with meaningful social as well as environmental impacts. Financial investments in the fisheries and aquaculture sector has traditionally been limited precisely because the production and profitability in these sectors have historically been rather unpredictable. The value chain of the sector is complex and unfamiliar to financial institutions who have difficulties to establish a complete risk assessment framework before undertaking any investments. Therefore, they're presented with risky business models for the financial sector. However, we understand that to manage this unpredictability through established best practices and ever improving technology is shifting this paradigm. The financial sector and fisheries and aquaculture sector can mutually benefit from collaboration given the important scale and economic impact of these sectors, including contributions to the employment, value addition, and food security. For investments in these sectors, it's crucial to measure impact in the following ways. So, qualitative information, for example, information from stakeholders gathered via interviews, etc. The quantitative metrics would include number of jobs created directly or indirectly, or, for example, tons of CO2 saved. And finally, the standard frameworks, for example, the SDGs that help measure impact against each and every goal. These things are really important. As they say, it's crucial to measure so as to create a change in the ecosystem that you want to create. The next really important thing is insurance. Aquaculture farmers face many risks that can threaten their production, their incomes, as well as their consumption. Farmers can generally cope with small and recurrent risks by adopting best management practices and self-insurance tools such as savings and contingent credit. However, they're often not able to manage the less frequent but more severe losses resulting from diseases, theft, predation, floods and water shortages, water pollution by herbicides and pesticides used nearby, storms and swells, climate change induced perils such as warming of the waters, increased damage from harmful algal blooms. When fish farmers suffer from disastrous crop losses, the entire value chain is affected. Losses can affect the entire economy, especially if aquaculture products are important export commodities for the country. Appropriate financial measures such as insurance and are thus imperative to prevent such losses from becoming catastrophic for aquaculture farmers and for society as a whole. Aquaculture insurance is a financial tool that provides a mechanism for transferring risk faced in aquaculture production. It is used primarily to hedge against the risk of production losses. Perils covered under aquaculture insurance include technical failure, extreme weather events, environmental pollution, and natural disasters, which separately or in combination may cause fish stock mortality and damage to aquaculture facilities. And the benefits of providing insurance to farmers are multifold. So you get the protection of capital invested, protection against events or natural hazards that affect health, assets, and harvests, more secure incomes, increased stability and economic welfare, improved access to investment capital and credit, increased access to risk management strategies and opportunities. So we can see how all of these things nicely interlink together, and thus an ecosystem where farmers get access to blended finance, insurance, lending credit support could be a boon for the aquaculture industry. Now last but not the least is the role of technology in helping with the blue economy. Some of the key technologies that are helping create a thriving, sustainable, and modern aquaculture value chain are precision aquaculture, transparent supply chain, online market space, and automation of the operations, processes, etc. So, precision aquaculture is providing a multitude of new applications for sensor technology paired with robotics, computer vision, and artificial intelligence technologies. For example, sensors increasingly collect optical and physical data to monitor fish growth, health, feed loss reduction, etc. And the AI and the data processing is helping identifying patterns in feeding activities and presenting strategies to farmers ranging from cost efficient use of feed to maintaining fish welfare. There's a massive opportunity to capture data from various stages of the crop life cycle through sensors, drones, weather stations, and once we have that data captured, we must analyze it. When we talk about data analysis, it has to cover the hindsight as well as the foresight. A look at past performance to determine what happened and why, and then also to do an analysis of likely scenarios of what might happen. The seafood industry has often been criticized for its complex, data deficient, and particularly opaque supply chains. These provide room for operational inefficiencies and open the door to issues such as antibiotics in the produce, mislabeling frauds, and labor right violations. But also, the good news is that today, the rising demand for responsible seafood has spurred a demand for new systems that can identify, track, and verify the origins of seafood to support the industry's sustainability claims. A connected supply chain uses technologies such as blockchain, QR codes, and sensors to monitor the movement of produce through the value chain in real time, basically from tracking to controlling to empowering and customers with real-time updates. Blockchain has considerable potential to improve traceability, accuracy, and accountability along the fisheries value chain. It can provide an online traceability infrastructure for the permanent storage and sharing of key data elements. For example, the species, the product type, production, or expiry date, along with critical tracking events like sourcing, product splits, and processing. Applications of blockchain in food supply chain can address a wide array of issues. These include improving food safety, traceability, and transparency, and enhancing performance, revenue, accountability, data security, and brand protection. From an operational perspective, the blockchain technology in fish value chains could provide incentives for different stakeholders in the industry. For example, for the private sector, it could improve operational efficiencies and bolster demand in the marketplace. While for the government authorities, it could be a means to verify and validate produce reports and to document that export market requirements are met. Overall, it provides all stakeholders with the visibility, helping to eliminate bottlenecks within supply chain processes, getting visibility of vulnerabilities, and redesigning for resilience across the ecosystem. The next one that we have here is the online marketplace. The online marketplace provides a user-friendly one-stop shop for all produce. It empowers small-scale farmers to participate in the ecosystem. It brings together the ecosystem partners on a platform, improving collaboration. Online marketplaces can help sellers reach a wider population base, and they also give consumers wider choices. Also, food producers can create their own online shop or sell through others on the platform. Wholesalers can integrate with existing systems and supply produce through national or regional networks of shops and communities, bringing together producers in their area to create a virtual farmers market, helping build a resilient local food economy. Finally, the adoption of autonomous technology, example the automated feeders, etc., to automate manual tasks and time-intensive activities leads to an increase in productivity, yield optimization, and minimization of human error. I would like to sum it up by saying food security is one of the biggest issues the world faces. Aquaculture already is a major source of protein, and if we are to meet the growing demand for protein while simultaneously reducing the pressure on wild fish stocks, it will require further scaling and investment. Done poorly, aquaculture can damage sensitive ecosystems, disrupt communities, and pose a threat to human health. Done well, it can be a force for ecological and social good as it has a low environmental footprint, develops a wide range of jobs and skills in rural communities, and provides healthy food for consumers globally. For any questions, I can be reached at priya.guliani@gbaglobal.org. Thank you for your time today. Have a good day.
Welcome to my presentation about digital innovation in the agri-food sector, showing pathways towards a digital transformation for sustainable food systems. My name is Jaak Wolfert and I'm a senior scientist at Wageningen University and Research. The outline of my presentation consists of three parts. First, I will describe the trends and developments concerning the digital transformation of the agri-food sector. This will conclude with a definition of the innovation challenge for digital innovation in the agri-food sector. Then I will introduce an integrated innovation approach to address this challenge. And finally, I will use a real-life example from wine production to illustrate how this approach works in practice. Then I will end up with some conclusions. So let's first have a look at how the digital transformation of the agri-food sector is taking place. What is happening in this picture has become a common phenomenon in modern supermarkets. Maybe you are also scanning your groceries and checking your shopping list in this way. You can't wait to open this package of famous Dutch cheese at home and taste it. But do you know where the cheese has come from? How was it produced? When I eat it, what is the impact on my ecological footprint? The barcode suggests that there is a lot of data to answer these questions. But what infrastructure is needed for this? Are food producers willing to share data? And are you, as a consumer, willing to pay more for this information? If yes, who benefits most from that? The retailer, or the farmer, or someone else? So let's explore the dynamic world of digitalization that is behind the simple barcode, which, as you will learn, has four applications. First, decision-making in companies or for consumers. Second, food integrity. Third, public decision-making by public authorities. And finally, science and technology development. The main message for you to remember is that the digital transformation is not only a technological development. It also requires insights into organizational changes that come along with it. The food production from farm to fork has become increasingly digital. This is due to the so-called cyber-physical management cycle of smart sensing and monitoring, smart analysis and planning, and smart control. Objects such as crops, animals, or trucks are monitored by smart sensors, satellites, or drones with cameras. They are smart because their observations go beyond human senses, such as sight, smell, and hearing. Moreover, they are capable of observation 24/7 without becoming tired. Smart sensing and monitoring results in a lot of data that is analyzed through smart algorithms in software applications. The result could be an instruction to fertilize crops or to treat your animals. This planning is then executed by smart machines that know the local context and what the optimal treatment for your crops or animals is. The loop is closed again by monitoring the effect of the control actions. In this way, you can see if the growth of your animals or crops is going into the right direction. This decision-making cycle can be applied to every object and company in the whole value chain. Also to consumers who are deciding what cheese they want to buy in the supermarket. This is the first application of digitalization in which data is used for decision making. The second application of these data is for food integrity, meaning you can pass the data through the whole chain to address questions such as where does my food come from, how was it produced, how many pesticides were applied, how long did the animals live before they were slaughtered. However, this requires a technical infrastructure of information systems between companies that exchange data. Here, standardization of data comes into play. If two companies use a different name for the same pesticide, it becomes a problem to exchange the right information. But besides technical issues, there is also the question if companies are willing to share data. And if they are forced to share, how do they know the data haven't been tampered with? Even if companies are willing to share data, do they want to invest in these smart sensors, software and machines from the previous slide? And can these costs be passed on to the rest of the value chain? And if you're unable to make these investments, does it mean that you will be excluded from certain market channels? The third application of the same data is for public policies. The data could be used to control food safety, support environmental policy, or health policies. Currently, most governments have their separate monitoring systems or censuses that are usually lagging behind the actual situation. What if you could plug into these real-time data to monitor the nitrogen emissions or detect the food contamination right at the source? That would be fantastic, right? But what happens if data are used for other purposes? What if your company is marked, fairly or unfairly, as fraudulent and the authorities close it down? And more positively, are you rewarded if your data indicate that you are producing in an environmental friendly way? The fourth and final application area of data is science and technology. Examples of technologies are artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, or big data analytics. Actually, these technologies are the main drivers behind this whole digitalization. But at the same time, their development depends on the data that are produced through the application of these technologies. You can do big data analytics without access to big data. Traditionally, scientific knowledge is produced by analyzing data from controlled library or field experiments. But the applicability outside that context is always limited. Your situation is always different and not as controlled as compared to those experiments. Nowadays, modern data science is able to analyze large amounts of real-time data from different sources. The outcomes can potentially be applied in a more specific context for your field, your crops, or your animals. But the question remains, are you willing to share your data with scientists for this purpose? Further, scientists usually need data from other sources, for example your competitors, to create benchmarks and trustful algorithms. Are you able to mobilize your sector or branch to organize this in a mutual beneficial way that everybody can trust? In conclusion, the digital transformation of agri-food is taking place through the introduction of all kinds of smart devices and software. This results in a lot of data that has unprecedented potential for first, decision-making in companies or for consumers. Secondly, for food integrity. Third, for public decision-making by public authorities. And fourth, science and technology development. Now the innovation challenge for this digital transformation can be formulated as follows. How to create data-driven solutions that utilize the potential of digital data to support sustainable food production. The raised issues in this presentation indicate that you have to address technical and organizational issues at the same time, which are data infrastructure and analytics on creating technical systems and algorithms. Secondly, business modeling on the added value of data-driven solutions. And third, governance and ethics of data sharing, on making agreements and setting rules between organizations. Let's now have a look how this challenge can be addressed by an integrated innovation approach. Digital innovation is often associated with smart machines, such as the autonomous robot in this picture. However, putting such a machine in the orchard is step one, which is easy. To make this machine useful for your purposes, which is creating added value, is step two. I will introduce you to an approach for digital innovation that provides a framework for taking the next steps. Let's find out where it leads us. The approach to digital innovations starts by defining a use case project in which you are going to develop a certain digital solution. A use case means that you already start to use the solution in the project. It is tested in a real-life environment in which user involvement is a key success factor. Development of digital solutions consists of a cycle of 3 steps. First, design. Second, implementation and testing. And third, evaluation. Dependent on the outcome, you are going to adapt your design and go through these steps again. To guide this cycle, it is important to set clear objectives for the use case project. What do you want to achieve? For example, to increase yield, or to reduce pesticide use, or better transparency for consumers. The spiral in this picture indicates how you go through the development cycle, but each time you try to end up at the next level. This next level is determined by so-called minimum viable products. A minimum viable product is a version of a product or service with just enough features that can be evaluated by the users. Each next minimum viable product adds more features until you reach the stage at which the digital solution is mature and can be introduced at a large scale. This means that the minimum viable product is more than a technical prototype to see if it works. Features should also include aspects of practical use, costs and benefits. User testing, asking, do users need my app? And usability testing, asking, can users use my app? Are the key principles to guide the development of the digital solutions. Therefore, it is important that you have stakeholder involvement throughout the whole development cycle. Stakeholders can be, for example, technology providers, farmers, logistic providers, consultants, or researchers. Depending on the specific context and scope of an innovation, a use case project can last from several months up to several years. Also, the period of the development cycles can vary from weeks to months or years. A use case project usually takes place at a relatively small scale. A few organizations and persons form the core. This is inherent to the character of a use case, in which you want to create a safe and trustful environment. The involved stakeholders want to learn by making mistakes without being watched by too many people. However, there is also a risk that the use case is too isolated and has poor access to other experiences and state-of-the-art knowledge. It is also important that digital technologies build on standards in order to be able to scale up afterwards. Besides, there can be external factors, such as laws and regulations, that determine the success of the innovation. Therefore, it is important that a use case is supported from 3 different scientific disciplines. These are data science and information management, business modeling, governance and ethics, and ecosystem development. Let's take a closer look at these disciplines. The first discipline is data science and information management. Data science helps to analyze data according to the latest techniques and scientific insights. Information management helps to organize data exchange and integration between various devices and systems that are involved. It is important to think about an information architecture and data standards to be used. This is not only a technical thing, it interacts with business processes and the users of the various organizations involved. The second discipline is business modeling, governance and ethics. Although these can be approached as separate disciplines, they are usually very much intertwined. Business modeling helps to define the added value of the digital solutions at stake. What are the costs and benefits? Who are they shared between the involved stakeholders? Through the development cycle, it can appear that many data gets into the hands of a particular stakeholder. How do you want to deal with that? That's where the governance and ethics come in. What are the underlying values that determine who you want to do business with, and what kind of agreements you want to make about sharing data? The third discipline is ecosystem development. This already starts at the preparation phase of the use case project. With whom are you going to work on developing the digital solution? During the development cycle, it can be necessary to involve other players. And if you want to scale up the innovation, you have to find new investors and the right communication and dissemination channels. Although these disciplines, data science and information management, business modeling, governance and ethics, and ecosystem development, are presented here in 3 separate blocks, in reality there is also much interaction and overlap between them. For example, the choice of a particular business model will influence the way you build your information architecture. It could be very open or closed. And for example, ethical choices can lead to inclusion or exclusion of certain types of organizations, and thus influences the way the ecosystem develops. The involvement of these 3 different groups of disciplines can be organized in various ways. If you have a single use case project, you can include researchers, consultants, and communication managers that bring in the knowledge and expertise that is needed. But another possibility is that the use case is embedded in a larger project with multiple use cases. In that situation, dedicated expert teams are supporting the use cases from these different disciplines. Like that, you can also learn from other use cases. In summary, digital innovation should take place in use case projects that follow a cyclic collaborative approach supported by multiple disciplines. This means that you are working together in a real-life context of a use case project to develop a certain digital solution. Together with multiple stakeholders, you go through several cycles of design, implementation and testing, and evaluation. And each cycle you develop a minimum viable product that can be supported and evaluated from different technical and organizational disciplines: data science and information management, business modeling, governance and ethics, and ecosystem development. In this way, a large-scale adoption of the digital solution is best guaranteed. Let's now have a look at how this innovation approach works in practice, by taking a real example from wine production. Big wine optimization was a use case project in the EU-funded large-scale pilot, the Internet of Food and Farm 2020, in short, IOF 2020. The general objective of the use case was to develop Internet of Things tools, IoT, for sustainable wine production, wine quality management and shipping monitoring. The use case project followed this iterative approach, going through the several cycles of design, implementation and testing, and evaluation, involving all relevant stakeholders. And each cycle, a minimum viable product was developed that was evaluated and supported by technical and organizational disciplines: data science and information management, business modeling, governance and ethics, and ecosystem development. The ultimate goal was to have a large-scale application of the various IoT solutions. Well, let's see how this really worked in practice. The ultimate challenge for this use case was to develop a sustainability footprint for a bottle of wine based on digital data. This should be used to differentiate at a retail level and target a specific group of consumers. To that end, 3 IoT products or services were to be developed. First, a wine sustainability tool to manage sustainability at the vineyard level. Second, a wine quality control tool to control quality in the cellar storage. And third, a wine shipping monitoring tool to monitor the quality during transport to the retailer. Together, these should provide the necessary information to make up a story about sustainability for each bottle of wine. The use case project lasted 4 years, and it would be too much for now to go into all developments in detail. So let's zoom in on the development of the wine sustainability tool for vineyard management. First, challenges were defined, such as precision viticulture deals with huge amounts of data, and too much time is required to process them without appropriate tools, and real-time decisions are needed. From these challenges, core features were defined, such as a professional dashboard for key parameters transmitted from IoT sensors in the vineyard, and a single easy-to-use interface to display, aggregate and interpret data in real time. Based on these features, the use case was designed by putting sensors in the vineyard that produce the relevant data. From this data, dashboard applications were developed that contain relevant management information concerning sustainability goals. Based on this information, management practices were adjusted in order to reach the sustainability goals. The loop is closed by measuring to what extent the goals were reached or not. According to the innovation approach used, this cycle was repeated several times. Each time a minimum viable product was defined and evaluated by the stakeholders. It means, for example, that the dashboard was not developed at once, but they started with a first sketch that gave an idea of the necessary sustainability information. After an evaluation round, it could be decided to include additional sensors in the vineyard or include other management practices. As explained in the beginning, the use case was supported by several disciplines, indicated by the green blocks. Let's first zoom in on what this means for data science and information management. The sensors in the vineyard capture large amounts of data that need to be captured, stored, transferred, transformed, and finally to be analyzed. All these actions are needed to finally put the data together and in the dashboard to show relevant management information. This information should be the basis for actionable knowledge to implement the appropriate management practices. Let's now focus on the role of ecosystem development. The main initiators of this use case project were the wine grower and producer Denis Dubourdieu domain from Bordeaux in France, and ST Microelectronics, a semiconductor company and leader in IoT components. Dubourdieu was already active in making wine production more sustainable. ST Microelectronics had ideas to enhance sustainability with the use of all kinds of advanced sensors and technology. Process to Wine is a local startup company that was involved to build a marketable product and service around this idea. However, they didn't have all the required technical expertise, so they involved Isvea, Bordeaux INP and CEA as partners. To scale up the solution, Vinidea was involved as innovation broker and for dissemination to other wineries. Let's finally have a closer look at business modeling, governance and ethics. The big wine optimization use case was supported in developing a product fact sheet. An important part was to set a number of relevant KPIs, such as reduce production costs with 10%, reduce monitoring time with 15%, reduce pesticide use with 10%, and to minimize wrong decision also by 10%. Another element was on the price setting. Process to Wine was the company supposed to market the product. It was estimated that the wine grower should pay €250 per year for the delivered services. In this price, Process to Wine should calculate for the services that were provided by the other partners. This was not yet defined within the scope of this project. At the other side, the wine grower should have a return on this investment by, for example, setting a higher price on the bottle of wine. Or the investment could be partly compensated by all the savings that are made. Also, this was still an open end at the end of the project. Now, business modeling is accompanied by various issues concerning governance and ethics. Taking this price-setting chain, the following questions or issues could be raised. Will Process to Wine get access and control over all data of the wine grower? Or can the wine grower use the same data also for other purposes? Will the tool be made available to all wine growers? Or will an association such as Vinidea claim that it is only available for their members? And what is the effect on the market position of companies such as STMicroelectronics? And finally, researchers could have a bias in their particular view on sustainable wine production. Many of these issues were discussed in various group settings guided by experts. Not all issues were solved, but the stakeholders greatly appreciated it, that they were now aware of them. And it should be noted that in this presentation, only a limited number of aspects of this use case could be highlighted and illustrated. In reality, the development was much more complex. The Big Wine Optimization use case was one of the 33 use case projects that were conducted all over Europe in the IOF 2020 project. Within that context, it was also possible to learn from each other amongst the various use cases, coming from different sectors and backgrounds. This effect was enhanced by having dedicated teams from various disciplines that supported all use cases. If you want to learn more about the use case Big Wine Optimization, but also other use cases that were done in IOF 2020, you can go to the use case catalog on www.iof2020.eu. I'm coming to a conclusion. I've showed how the digital transformation of the agri-food sector is taking place and that there is a clear potential for sustainable food systems. Through the digital transformation, a lot of data is produced which can be used for multiple purposes. You have learned that digital innovation is not only about technology, but that technical and organizational issues should be addressed at the same time. Therefore, digital innovation should take place in a real-life context by use case projects, following a multidisciplinary, collaborative, agile approach. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention.
Hi, my name is Clémentine Calvier. I studied urban agriculture and I did my research on the following question. Are global megacities on the path of becoming a viable ecosystem to answer the need for sustainable agriculture? For this presentation, I have drawn up a plan that will first provide an understanding of the subject and its importance. Then, the Shanghai case study will be a way to grasp and illustrate the various advantages and challenges of urban agriculture in megacities, and to infer the implication for the viability of this model in order to apprehend the future with new key of developments. The first question is, what is it really about? This topic revolves around an alternative system to traditional agriculture, which is urban agriculture. This is defined by the FAO as small areas within cities, such as vacant lots, gardens, yards, balconies, and containers that are used for growing crops and raising small livestock for own consumption or sale in neighborhood markets. This type of agriculture is not a new model, contrary to popular belief, and was notably present during the interwar period to ensure food security. The study that I have carried out on this subject is done through the assessment of its viability in the long term in megacities, mainly through its economic, environmental, and social review. Investigating this viability was a way of addressing my question, which was whether the biggest cities in the world would be a pathway in order to meet the urgent need for more sustainable agriculture. The second question is why? Why is it important to study this particular topic? This theme is linked to very contemporary issues, the question of biological products, short circuits, and more broadly, an awareness about the origin and quality of the food we eat, which is sometimes quite dubious today. Sustainability is a growing concern in modern times, as the impact of climate change is already felt in many parts of the world. In this context, I personally believe it is essential to address the challenges required to build a world more sustainable. I soon discovered that urban agriculture was taking on a central role in these discussions, primarily because it is necessary to feed the fast-growing population. Secondly, because the farming industry relies a lot on our planet's limited resources, while having at the same time a significant impact on biodiversity. In the coming years, agriculture will have to satisfy a growing demand coming from cities and megacities, which is something it is currently unable to assume without making an enormous impact on our planet. It is also analyzed that there is a strong migration towards the big cities, which raises the question of food security in the megacities, large and highly populated cities. My thesis and this presentation will outline and discuss the viability of a system which is regaining popularity, frequently suggested as a core solution for reconciling the sustainable goals of cities and agriculture. Urban agriculture constitutes a contemporary and pertinent topic to work on. My ambition was to dig a little deeper into the subject and see if there were any obstacles to this system in order to analyze its real impact. I believe that it is necessary not to rush into alternative solutions which at first sight may seem perfect, but which could have negative repercussions decades later. After the analysis of my quantitative data, Shanghai showed itself through the participants' answers as a good representation of the advantages and challenges of urban agriculture in megacities. I have chosen to include it in this presentation to illustrate the benefits and challenges that urban agriculture could have. Indeed, it was observed in Shanghai that urban agriculture creates employment, an important sense of community, reduces malnutrition, promotes food security, and has an impact on the city's environment by reducing the urban heat island phenomenon by lowering the city's temperature. However, Shanghai residents perceive food from urban agriculture as generally dirty, even dangerous to health. In Shanghai, organizations have set up certification on the organic nature of products to support farmers and increase public trust. However, even these certifications are little recognized. Thus, it seems that urban agriculture policies and regulations are not sufficiently adapted to the characteristics and challenges of the city of Shanghai. So, what can we keep in mind for the viability of this system in megacities? What are the key findings and implications in Shanghai, but also in other megacities? First, that globally, further research and knowledge are needed. For example, while many assumptions are made about the impact of climate change on outdoor urban agriculture, such as rooftop or vertical farms, few studies have been done on the real impact that global warming will have. Prior to giving more significant importance to urban agriculture, it is thus necessary to gain a better overall grasp of this scheme, for which research is relatively recent. One other main focus is to educate the public to address the knowledge gap between older and younger generations, making use of the public landscape as an accessible and a visible part of gardening, and fostering communities by connecting people with one another. Secondly, a great implementation is key. Local authorities must support its development. The food industry and existing retail system must accommodate it. A large number of participants, volunteers, entrepreneurs, and investors must be committed, and residents must at least be respectful of the presence of urban agriculture in the neighborhood. It is crucial to gain an understanding of each stakeholder motivation to ensure that their voices are heard and to innovate in mutually accepted ways. This is the only way we will be able to highlight the many social, economic, and environmental benefits of urban agriculture. Additionally, Shanghai illustrates an essential aspect. It is imperative to make the commitment to implement urban agriculture to address the need and, above all, the fears of the local population. The third point is that policy and regulation are required. Urban agriculture tends to suffer due to a variety of policy constraints, including restrictive urban policies, laws, and regulation. Multifaceted policies intervention could hasten the removal of obstacles through a combination of changing in subsidies, the tax system, land accessibility, and construction regulation, together with new waste management approaches. To that end, BARS in 1997 foresees an increasingly prominent task for policymakers. These policymakers should be enabled to help farmers and consumers acquire knowledge about the opportunities and that urban agriculture presents in protecting the urban ecology. Overall, what is certain is that existing academic discourse may benefit from a better understanding of the effect of different measures and their perception by the public, the cost-benefits ratio regarding the financial initiatives, as well as how the schemes can be adapted to specific cultural and geographical circumstances, along with the factors that influence the success of some schemes and the failure of others. But whatever is decided, this model shouldn't be overlooked. Urban agricultures currently play a major part in the food security of some megacities and should in that sense not be overlooked. The strengths of this scheme are numerous, economically, socially, and environmentally. But to be confident that there are no more challenges than advantages, it is important to further develop an understanding of this model. So, what can we conclude? First of all, in the future, a prerequisite is to implement policies and regulation adapted to the local situation. The Shanghai case has shown that these policies must legitimize and promote this activity, as well as providing a framework for its development in order for it to be widely accepted. What is agreed is that it will be necessary to promote education and further research on this scheme, to be able to determine the nature and viability of urban agriculture in megacities. Indeed, despite the many benefits identified, relatively little is known about the associated threat of this model. Additionally, a development that is too hasty and inadequately assessed might have far-reaching implications for the social, economic, and environmental environment of megacities. Nevertheless, as suggested, there are numerous opportunities offered by urban agriculture in megacities, in particular the opportunity to create a new model of agriculture, social, environmentally friendly, whose primary objective is often not profit. Urban agriculture is today a cornerstone in megacities to partially tackle the issue of food security and should not, in this sense, be set aside. More research could lead to a promising economic, environmental, and social future for megacities. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gabriel do Nascimento. I'm the CEO of Non-Precision Agriculture, and we are a Brazilian startup. And today I'm going to be talking about democratizing precision agriculture. First, let's define what is precision agriculture. When you search on the internet, you can also find similar terms like precision farming, precision ag, or even agriculture 4.0. Actually, it's interesting how sometimes these names become the standard, right? I remember when we had just opened our company 3 years ago, there were some people sending us messages like, hey, stop creating new terms. There's no such a thing as precision agriculture. And we had to explain to them that it was a real thing and we didn't create it. Anyway, precision agriculture is when you manage a farm taking into consideration the variability of each field. For example, in this picture here, that you can see here, you can see you have these squares with different colors. After taking to the lab and analyzing the soil samples, you can generate a map that shows the pH of the soil. And based on this data, you could calculate fertilizer dosage, for example, for each individual square. So if I could define in two phrases, precision agriculture is taking variability into consideration and making decisions based on data. Here we have some precision ag technologies. You have the grid soil sampling that we just mentioned. We have big data, autonomous tractors, weather stations. You know, all these technologies, they are really important and they have revolutionized agriculture. But usually they are expensive for small farmers. For example, you can see here, this chart is from a Brazilian national survey in 2017. And 67% of the farmers who were interviewed answered they don't use precision agriculture at all. That's a lot. So how can we help this 67% start using precision ag technologies? In this session, we will show how our company helped a group of coffee farmers from a small Brazilian cooperative taking their traceability to the next level and increasing their profitability. But first, let's understand this market. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer, accounting for more than a third of the world's production. What is interesting is that 70% of the Brazilian coffee growers are considered small farmers, which is when you own less than 50 hectares or approximately 120 acres of land. The thing is, when you hear terms like small and family farms in countries in development like Brazil, many of us would think of them as poor people, but that's not true. Look at this picture. This is one of our clients. Who wouldn't love to live in a place like this? These farmers, they have good houses, good cars, their kids go to good universities. So what's happening here, you know? If they have money to invest, why aren't they using more technologies? What's the problem here? Of course, there's no easy solution for this problem, but let's try to understand better this farmer's reality, okay? Most of them don't have this specific knowledge and time to search and learn about these new technologies. So they depend mostly on agronomists who visit them in person. These in-person visits are how the small farmers have access to new technologies and specialized knowledge. And that's how it works. When you are a big farmer, you have agronomists and other professionals ready to give you advice all the time. And you can hire your own consultants. The company that you bought fertilizer, pesticides also offers you your own personal agronomist. So we asked this group of small farmers, and they told us most of them just have enough money to pay for an agronomist to visit them only twice a year. So how can we help them access this specialized knowledge without taking an agronomist in person to their farms? The answer is drone mapping. Drone mapping can be an affordable solution for growers who want to start adopting precision agriculture. How? A group of 48 coffee farmers from a fair trade cooperative will show. For those who don't know, a cooperative is a form of business that is owned by its customers. In this case here, the farmers, they come together as a business organization that will buy their own coffee production and find better deals for them. So as a group, now they have money to invest in training, improving the quality of the product, better machinery, and a very important thing, certifications. Fair trade is the name of one of those certifications, and it helped Copasvi to close deals with big players like Starbucks, for example. So now that we got to know Copasvi better, let's talk about how exactly we help them. This picture here is the homepage of the online platform that we developed for them. The platform has many features. The most important ones I'm going to show you now. There's a video here. You can see in the video that you can save important information about each field of the farm. For example, the kind of coffee, the year it was planted, how was the last harvest, and you also notice the quality, right? The resolution. It's like 3 centimeters per pixel. That's 100 times better than, for example, Google Earth. Another important feature is that you can visualize maps in a timeline. So you can compare the before and after. So that's really important, right, in agriculture. So in this project, all 48 farmers that in Copasvi Techie, we map them every 2 months. So imagine the kind of how much information we have about this. And you can also make annotations on the map, like measuring areas and finding problems. Here, for example, in this video, you can see that there's a lot of failures, like there's a lot of skips and empty spaces that they could actually plant more trees of coffee, right? But the most important feature is that the platform made it possible for the cooperative to offer to all 48 farmers a remote, good quality consultancy. Instead of having to send an agronomist to each farmer, the farmers now go to the headquarters of the cooperative to receive this private consultancy. So why are these things important? Now, all farmers can have access to an agronomist's opinion about their crop. The cooperative now has more control over the quality of the coffee produced and traceability. Having recent maps of all the farms plus the private consultancy happening every 2 months, the cooperative has a lot of information about every stage of development of the coffee at the farm. And this is very important for international buyers or any buyer, like having all this information in an easy way to access, right? So how affordable are the drones? With a $2,000 equipment, you can get the job done. The cooperative actually has 2 options. They either buy their own equipment or hire us to do the mapping as well. So if each farmer would hire us individually, it would be expensive for them, but for the cooperative, it's not. So in this project, Copasvi chose to hire us to do the whole process. By the way, check out this. It's 48. The 48 farmers together own around 1,200 hectares of land. Okay, with this drone that you see here in the picture, you can map around 1,000 hectares per day. So of course they're not actually next to each other, so you have the time that you need to actually drive to the place. But in 3 to 4 days, you can map all 48 farmers. So how does it work, right? Let's understand the technical part of the project. So you have to fly the drone. So here you need a pilot. And so here you need a pilot. And it's really, to fly this drone that you saw in the picture, it's really easy. It requires almost no special knowledge, you know? Of course, you need someone that you trust because it's a $2,000 equipment. But what I mean is that you wouldn't have to pay a lot to hire someone to do this. So in our company, we pay the minimum wage for this position. The second step is to process the images. Here, you need another person who will be responsible to get the images and turn them into maps. That's why it's called processing. Just so you understand better this process. When the drone flies, it takes hundreds of pictures of an area. All these pictures, they are georeferenced. That means that you know the GPS position of them. Then you need a software to stitch them together and generate a map like those ones you saw when I showed you the platform. The third step is upload the maps to the platform. This step usually is done by the same person that processed the images. We pay 3 times the minimum wage for this position because it demands a lot of skills. Like this person needs to know, just to start working with this, like to know how to use very well QGIS, Google Earth Pro, and other specific drone processing imagery software like Agisoft Metashape. So the fourth step, analyze the maps. Here you need a person, in this case an agronomist, who will analyze the maps and try to find problems. Like basically this agronomist would do the same thing that he would do if he would go in person, but actually sometimes it's even better because in person, under that hot sun, he wouldn't go walking all over the place. But the drone goes and maps all the areas, so he can take a look in every inch of the area, right? And the fifth step is the private consultancy. I showed you the pictures. This is the step that is made also by the agronomist who analyzed the maps, and he's going to invite the farmer in person to the headquarters of the cooperative to offer him this private consultancy. So as you can see, you need 3 people to execute a project like this. In this case, Copasvi uses its own agronomist to do the consultancy, but the pilot and the processing person is from our company. So what insights can drone mapping deliver, right? I'm going to show here examples of other kinds, not only coffee, okay? So we have plant counting. Here on the left, we have a forestry example, and on the right, we have lettuce. We have plant health monitoring. Using infrared cameras, it's possible to access, prevent, and correct the overall state and damage level of the crops throughout the season. Okay. In this case here, in the project with Copasvi, we chose not to use multispectral or infrared cameras because it would become too expensive. It's not $2,000 equipment. It would go up to $5,000, maybe even $7,000. But we deliver a very good quality map, so it's enough for this project. You can also generate high precision elevation maps. This is really important in agriculture because before drones appeared and was this cheap, right? This kind of service used to take days and a group of people to get it done. Now, in less than an hour, you can generate a very good quality, precise elevation map of an area. You can also identify planter skips. This is from a sugarcane client of ours. And this specific map showed that almost 25% of this area wasn't being used correctly because the planter didn't drop the seeds on the right spacing and correctly, right? And that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. We are always looking for new opportunities and new partnerships. So feel free to get in touch with us, and bye-bye.
Today, we will be talking about indoor farming and its transformation towards a self-regulating environment. 21st century is all about smart technology. There is no denying the fact that there have been exponential changes in the way we live, work, or relate to one another in just the last 2 decades. Well, we are still surrounded by the same everyday objects, except now they have become smarter and have made our lives easier. Take a smartphone for an instance. Earlier it was just used for making and taking calls, but now it has replaced a camera, calculator, compass, notebook, music, television, wallet, and even movie theaters, all thanks to the current pandemic. So, where exactly is the world heading? Well, we all know that FAO has projected that there will be about 2 billion additional people on this planet by 2050. 80% of us would be living in densely populated cities, demanding about 70% more food. And the effect of climate change and urbanization would have been become so profound by then that even the idea of growing food outside for such a huge population would seem absolutely impossible with the remaining natural resources. So the question here arises is that are there better ways of growing food? Well, growers have always been looking for a solution. Are there better ways of growing food? And I believe that until and unless the digital solutions prove to be more capable, more efficient, and more affordable than any other thing on the market, agriculture cannot enjoy its smartphone moment. Fortunately, the recent advances in the agriculture technology has made it possible to grow food that is safe, nutritious, sustainable, and economically viable. One such advancement of the recent agriculture technology innovations is the indoor farming. It has made it possible to grow food without harmful chemicals, pesticides, soil, and even natural light. And it also comes with its own set of advantages, one being that there is water savings up to 95%, and we can produce fresh and high quality produce throughout the year. If we look into the expansion of this industry in the recent years, we can see that there has been a tremendous growth both in terms of the total area and the recent capital investment. And it has been predicted that it will grow up to 4 times more in just the next year. So, why is it that everyone is talking about it just now? Since the concept is as ancient as the Hanging Garden of Babylon, it was not until the 20th century that the term vertical farming was actually coined by American geologist Gilbert Bailey. He, in his book by the same name, Vertical Farming, has described farming vertically downwards rather than farming vertically upwards. And by the end of the 20th century, Dr. Dixon Despomeyer was the person who actually gave the idea of the modern vertical farms. And his idea of growing food in multiple story buildings with each floor having multiple layers of uh, crops being grown actually became the harbinger of modern day vertical farms or the present day vertical farms. And eventually, a decade later, the world saw its first modern vertical farm in Singapore called the Sky Green Farms. And this farm actually has about 100 towers, each one of them up to 9 meters tall, and they are growing leafy vegetables using natural light and harvested rainwater. The modern vertical farms, they have just turned to become smart with their sophisticated environmental control systems, irrigation systems. There are multiple monitoring devices. There are sensors for each and every aspect of these modern farms, and even there is cloud computing. And all the different ag tech companies that are actually catering to the specific areas of these vertical farms, they actually boast of collecting about thousands and millions of data points on a daily basis, which I think is enough to call them smart. But the real question here is that is being smart enough for indoor farms? Well, absolutely not. Given the fact that every farm is unique in terms of what crops they grow, where the farm is situated, what is the purpose of the farm, each and everything makes a farm very unique, even the environmental conditions. So the concept of one size fits all just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, secondly, these smart systems are very complicated to install and understand, let alone used by the grower, and they are extremely expensive. Thirdly, all these smart systems they tend to overload the grower with thousands and millions of data points of information, but not actually orienting the grower towards any kind of action. So that actually is very impractical for a grower. Next, we have the general data connectivity or limited Wi-Fi connections, connectivity challenges that are there. But since all these smart systems are heavily dependent on cloud computing, we can say that under limited or unstable data connectivity, the entire functionality of these systems might get disrupted. And last but not the least, there is the independent nature or isolated nature of these smart systems, meaning that there is very little to absolutely no data being shared among these systems. So that actually becomes very inconclusive for a grower to take any action, even though might be having all the different set of smart systems like we just saw in the previous slide. Why we can't say that smart and intelligent are the same things? When if you look at into the statistics, majority of the new indoor growers they do not have a farming background, they do not have any farming experience, and they completely rely on these different smart farming systems, smart indoor systems to help them grow crops and sustain their business. And in the scenario where only and only what these smart systems are doing is overloading the grower, being expensive for the grower, being unaffordable for the grower, being impractical for the grower, that actually doesn't help the grower with its needs, with its requirements. And if you look into the facility of this size, even if someone wants to go for automation by using robotics, first of all, it becomes very expensive. It's an added cost. And secondly, there might be a possibility that a specific robotic automation might not even be available at this period of time. And this is a very impractical solution for, say, a small or a medium sized grower. So definitely we cannot call these smart systems as intelligent because intelligent farming is much more advanced than the current smart farming. So what exactly is this intelligent indoor farming that we are talking about? Intelligent indoor farming is the collection and analysis of those thousands and millions of data points. Then it is to take control and to take action with the generated inference from those data. Ultimately, it is the evolution of this farming system with time. And that is actually achieved by deploying control environment or implementing control environment and automation throughout the production process. That is right from seeding till the produce is ready for distribution. So how can we make indoor farming intelligent? Indoor farming needs AIoT to become intelligent. Now, what is this AIoT? AIoT is actually a combination of artificial intelligence with Internet of Thing infrastructure to make more efficient operations, to make more efficient human to machine interactions, and to make more efficient data collection, data analysis, and data management. If we look into the potential benefits of applying AIoT to indoor farming, the first benefit is that it creates value out of the infinite amount of data that is being collected. So it means that the collection of those data points and the segmentation of those data points, it's very much contextual, meaning all the data is being segregated, collected and being segregated at the same time where it should actually be. Now, the second advantage is with this contextual data collection and segmentation, the analysis of that data actually becomes very quick, very quick. And the data analysis is not only just quick, it is also very uh, remotely conducted. That means you do not need cloud computing for the analysis of that data. So cloud computing is completely eliminated. The data is properly collected and segmented. Now, the third benefit is that while the data is being collected, segmented, and analyzed, it provides an opportunity for learning and personalization of the set of conditions that is required. And this becomes a very crucial feature for an indoor farm that might be growing different types of crops, different species of crops, different varieties of crops. So every time the data is being collected and segmented and analyzed, it learns that what set of environmental conditions, what set of growing conditions would be beneficial for that variety, for that species, for that plant type, and even for certain trees. And the next benefit is that all the decision making and all the actions that are taken becomes completely autonomous based on the real time and the predicted information. So that actually gives a very good potential for AIoT to turn farms into truly intelligent. Now, before we go into the actual process, we should first know about the components of indoor farms. So the components of indoor farms are the plants, the sensors, the machines, and also the grower. Now let us see how AIoT makes indoor farming intelligent. What AIoT actually does is that it facilitates the intercommunication among all these components of the indoor farm, meaning that grower can assign the goals, the harvest goals to the plant. The plant can then talk to the sensors. The sensors can then direct the machines or whatever equipment, monitoring device, whatever uh, you have got installed in your indoor farms. So sensors are going to direct those machines to realize those conditions that are required for the plant to fulfill its harvest goal. And that actually helps in optimization and personalization of all the growing conditions for the plant to meet its harvest needs or its harvest goals. So that's how AIoT not only just monitors, but it can also control the indoor farms by implementing automation. And that's how the indoor farms become truly intelligent. AgI has been working relentlessly on the concept of truly intelligent farming, and we have developed a very unique data driven platform, or it can be called as a self healing environment. So, for an example, we can look into the various growing conditions and how it impacts the whole system and how the system becomes truly intelligent to take any action. So we all know that all the growing conditions, whatever plants need, it changes regularly. Now, what the camera component does is it will assess any kind of visual change that is happening in the plant throughout its growth cycle. And the sensor module at the same time is going to capture what impact the ambient environment causes to the plant. And then the collective information will then go to the AGI Edge Hub, and that will actually take the action to make the environment more feasible, more amicable for the plant to realize its harvest needs. So this concept of AIoT has been explored by AGI to realize some of the commonly anticipated harvest goals, which can be as simple as manipulating the harvest dates to as complicated as enhancing the nutritional and pharmaceutical value of crops. And what we use is a very unique approach called the speaking plant approach that helps or enables the plant to communicate what it needs. Now, let us see some of the scope of self-regulating environment or self-regulated indoor farms. Now, first of all is that the lesser reaction time and the quicker decision making actually enables the automation to reduce the worker stress and improve the overall efficiency of the plant. That results in lesser human to human or human to crop interaction, which ultimately leads to a safer food that is coming out of such facility and a safer working environment for the existing labor. The next advantage is that all these type of farms are very much uh, less dependent, or they are not reliant on the seasonal labor for any kind of growing or harvesting season that is falling upon them. So that actually reduces the crop losses, and ultimately there would be long-term cost savings because there is increased efficiency of the farm, all the resources would be very judiciously utilized, and there will be long-term reduction in the operational cost. So we can say in a nutshell, or we can take a sneak peek of how the future of these kind of self-regulated indoor farms incorporated with AIoT would look like. Well, on the one hand, there will be significant improvements in the precision, accuracy, and efficiency of these farms, while on the other hand, all the associated costs, losses, labor requirements, risks, and most importantly, carbon footprints would reduce in the coming years. So a few takeaways from today's discussion would be that world is craving for major changes in the way we are growing food, and we know that indoor agriculture has the potential to ensure food security for the increasing population, but it still struggles from some of its own limitations. It has its own set of problems, one of which is the lack of actionable data that is currently prevailing in the smart indoor farming landscape. Now, AIoT can turn these farms into truly intelligent, that can self regulate, that are self sufficient, and they can ensure efficient, economic, and safe food for all. Thank you very much.
On the dilemmas in hortitech. Let's move on this talk because we only have 15 minutes to go. This is me. I work on digital transformation in ag food, and I run a lot of programs in the global market on innovation and disruption by technology. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing I want to talk to you about is about what I call the state of hortitech. And what you see here is the state of hortitech. This is how a lot of growers are registering their data only by pencil and paper. And we are moving into a new area. The new area where technology is disrupting our industry. Technology is moving fast, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going from what I call innovation into disruption. It's not just using technology for doing some things a little bit more better, but doing other things with technology which makes some current things unnecessary. And that's the challenge for our industry in how we have to move on. The state of hortitech. Let me take me with you. This is what I see going on in our industry, and you can read more about it on my paper. The first thing is we move into what I call single plant control. This means that we more and more are going from field control into controlling a single plant and their growth by using technology. For instance, sensors. Sensors are moving on into our industry, and I will show you later on a few which you will be stunned about. Then we go into autonomous growing. Growing where the grower is not in control, but the artificial intelligence systems are in control. And of course we see digital scouting, the use of vision technology in our industry. Then there is a huge development in our industry on crop and yield robots and packing robots. Robots is one of the most important things in our industry. And of course drones. Let them fly is what you see a lot about. That is happening and making our new industry more durable, sustainable, controllable, and things like that. Of course, we in that have platform thinking. Platform thinking, it means that we are saying, okay guys, we don't have to have one system, but we have to connect them. And then of course we go into chain transparency platforms. COVID showed us how chain transparency is needed to get control of your supply chain. And then we have some technical aspects. Let's say tech as a service. It's not just that you buy your tech, but you buy it as a service. That's something else. And of course, servitization. This means that technology is getting smaller and smaller, and it's based on service. And of course, there is a huge challenge I will not talk about today much on generation voice. The new marketeers of the next generation don't use pictures, they use voice and movies. And that's a huge challenge for our industry. And of course we have some issues. Our growers and also our traders say, hey, are my data secure? It's my data. And data quality is demanding. And of course, what I always call the burn rate. The development of the equipment we need costs are very high. And how do we get the burn rate? Where do we get the money to do that? Let me first take you with you into sensors. There are some amazing developments. Look over here. On the left upper side of your screen, I don't know if you recognize it, but it's a stoma. And on that stoma you have a sensor. That's amazing. And on the second picture you see a sensor which is grown into the plant. And we are going also from what I call copper sensors, iron sensors, into biosensors, where we use biomaterial to build sensors. And the last development is that we are going into sensors not outside the plant but inside the plant. That's an amazing development, and in human medicine they are already doing it, so I don't know why we shouldn't do it in our industry. But let's move on. This is an amazing thing. It's from Scanit, a company in the US. And what they developed the camera technology, a vision technology, where you can recognize the spores in the air. A grower cannot see it, a camera can see it, and these are spores of false mildew, and so you can recognize what's happening in the crop. That's amazing. But we can move on. Of course, we go to drones, big ones on the right, but even small ones on the left. The left is the POTS drone, where they are killing moths with. That's a complete new way of integrated pest management. But drones are using a lot of visualizations, data, 3D models, control maps and things like that. And that's also a huge challenge we have to develop, and we as growers and traders have to learn to work with. And then we go into yield robots. Yield robots of all kinds which have different options. The left one is a very big one in asparagus. That's a nice robot because I like it. I think maybe it's too big, but what he is doing, he is looking into the soil. Do you hear what I say? He is looking into the soil, and that gives a big opportunity for growers. On the right side, the Octinian robot, which is yielding strawberries, and that's also very amazing. But it moves on. This is an example of a tomato robot. Also, this kind of robots are coming into our industry, and these developments are very, very fast. And you see that robots are able to pick all kinds of small crops. I already saw the first robot who was picking raspberries in the UK. So it's not a question for me when do robots come, but it's a question how long it will take. But let's move on. Also there are crop robots. Robots which are doing the work in the field. This is a movie already from I think 8 years ago in the Australian Centre for Field Robotics, and those kinds of technology are developed more and more. There are more and more coming robots into our arena where crops are managed with robots and robots are doing the work on the field. You see, this robot is taking a complete 3D picture, and here he is also reading. All kinds of things you can done by this robot. But not only reading can be done, also individual plant spraying can be done. That's what you see over here. If the crop is not big enough, there is a little injection of minerals getting into the plant. And of course you can take samples of the soil. All kinds of things can be done by robots in the field. And ladies and gentlemen, this is all based on work like this of the Australian Centre for Field Robotics, Professor Sala Sukurai, which made this amazing movie on an almond trial field. And what you see over here is that vision technology can recognize a lot. They here are recognizing the flowers and the almonds in a tree. And that's an amazing development we are showing to. But then this gives us other opportunities. For instance, robots for a combination of a robot and a camera technology for integrated pest management. It's for years known that UV light can kill false mildew. But the problem is, how much light do you give connecting to how big is the plant, what is the status of the crop. And now by vision technology combining with the UV light, and you see the UV light blinking, it's blinking over there, and there you see, hey guys, there is happening something, and it's giving light to the plant. An amazing development in the next level. But also in packing station. You see here a movie of the Greva packing station in Foodmasters in the Netherlands, and they are making 80 pictures of every apple appear in that packing station. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a Microsoft data center full a day. And that's a huge, huge amount of data. And the question I have, how are we going to help the growers with this data of the packing station? But that moves on. Also over here you see how robots not just only can change people, also on the same Foodmasters packing station, no, they also add value because they put the apple on the tray exact how the grower and the trader wants it. In this kind of Kenzie apple, the red should be on top of it and all connections should be in the same direction. All apples should lie in the same direction. Amazing to see how a robot is not just taking over the work of people, but also is adding value to the packing project. Of course, we go into what I call supply chain connected growing. More and more we go into kinds like Inform is doing, bringing the grow not into the cities. Grow there where the people are, on the other side, then just grow where we need some more things. Okay, guys, let's move on. What we see is that a lot of these systems are based on what I call model-based. The opportunities are big. The opportunities for big data and AI, artificial intelligence, are great. We can move from the history of sales into maybe influencing sales by using of data. And we can go into the history of a field and a yield, for instance, into steering a yield based on data. But we have to realize ourselves that this means a huge impact of data quantity and data quality. So we need more data of a higher quality. And that's a very, very important in what's happening in our industry. So let me go to the end of my talk, because there are some other things we need to know and realize ourselves. The first thing I will say to you, technology never travels alone. We are moving from technology innovation, and that's where we humans look a lot at. But it's more. It's not just technology innovation, it's also moving into system innovation. How are we going to change our growing systems? How are we going to change our supply chains to use that new technology? How make we that technology available? And maybe also we need some social innovation, because it's not just a new way of making our systems, it's a new way of thinking in how we manage our company. The entrepreneurs in our industry have to change their thoughts about the use of technology. I call that altogether also farming for tech instead of tech for farming. That is what we need. A way of thinking in farming for tech. Let me show you an example. We use what we very important in there is that integrated user-driven startup thinking is a key. We have to integrate user-driven startup thinking. And let me see this. I showed you already this robot. And you see this robot needs another kind of crop, because the crop outside of it needs a longer, the fruits must be more out of the heart of the plant, so the robot can pick it. Here we have another example I want to show you. I didn't show you the Abundant apple picking robot, but also in apples and pears there is a lot going to change. We need trees which are crop ready for our technology, which are ready for and will not have so many bunches. Here you see a 1D tree. That's a tree which is very small but very open and gives a robot the space to get action in. And then we also go into the next step into what I call crops for vertical farming. Vertical farms are there a lot. Most of the farms are based on basil and leafy greens. But what if we want to grow tomatoes in those farms? Wouldn't it be great if we have a crop like this? And you see that companies are already, like the Lippmann Lab, are working on it. They are using CRISPR technology, an issue in Europe. But they can develop crops which are ready to use in vertical farms like this small tomato plant. Good, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot happening, but the dilemmas are that we have to make a connection in that development cycle. It's a combination of what crossover, value, system and data which is connected to the market. The development cycle is an issue in these kinds of things, where we have to know that we don't just look at cost in when we develop our technology, but we also have to look at the added value which things are driven. For instance, in picking, a lot of growers ask me, hey Harry, is he picking fast enough? But that is not the question. The question is there a good business case of the picking robot? And that means that we can make moves in our industry. The future will be what I called an unmanned growing concept, where all those technologies are coming together and with a way of platform thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, I've come to an end of my conclusions of my talk. Let's say this, we have some challenges, but we also have a market dilemma, because consumers often think that hand-picked maybe is better than robot-picked. Thank you very much, people, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy to see you more. Look forward to meet you somewhere around the world. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Tatsu Nishijima, Chairman of Liquid Technologies International. I'm honored to have this opportunity to talk to you about our innovative water enhancement technology. I would also like to introduce David Shepherd, who is my colleague in Australia. I'm going to make a brief introduction of our water enhancement technology, which is called LTI wet, for about 10 minutes. And David will speak about his view on LTI wet and what is happening in Australia. Now, let me start by explaining how our water technology works. Our water technology is remarkably simple. It requires specially made Japanese ceramic beads made from 100% natural ores and vertical stainless steel. The cylinder is attached to a water floor, and ceramic beads are agitated constantly, which means move up and down in a tube and collide with each other. This is the key of our technology. This technology will bring two effects. First, change the water structure. More precisely, it breaks hydrogen bonds, which are tied with hydrogen and oxygen in water. As a result, the water molecule becomes so small that water can be absorbed more readily by humans, plants, and animals. Furthermore, the process reduces the surface tension of water, causing hard water to become soft due to the contact of the ceramic beads. The second effect is our technology can provide water positive charge, which means water which is originally negative charge become positively charged. This effect can give water antioxidant effect and antimicrobial effect. What I just mentioned is summarized in a presentation material from page 3 to 6. Now, please see page 4. Here are the photos of our ceramic beads, stainless steel unit, and demo units, which is made from PVC and stainless steel. The effect, which I have just mentioned, can be of great use for many applications. Here, however, let me focus just on agriculture and livestock. Please have a look at page 8 for agriculture application. LTI promotes the following: use less water, less fertilizer, reduced pesticide, greater yield, greater sugar concentration, and soil remediation, which means increase of major fertilizer elements like phosphorus and potassium. And now, let's go to page 9. This is hydroponics and irrigation systems. For hydroponics systems, LTI can promote the following: less water and less fertilizer required, higher and healthier yield, early germination, and faster root growth. For irrigation system, scale and slime do not form in the irrigation system. Longevity of the irrigation system, including pipes, is extended. Now, please see page 11. This is a agriculture expert referral. He says, in my nearly 25 years as a consulting agronomist, I have never seen one product that affects so many areas of growing process. So he really impressed with our technology, particularly for our soil remediation. Okay, then next, let me discuss the effect for the livestock industry. Please look at page 12. LTI wet water promotes the following in livestock: reduced the use of antibiotics and supplements, increases in weight gain in livestock, including chicken, duck, pig, hog, and cattle, reduces the mortality rate, something like from 18% to 3% is the case of ducks, and shorten the cycle of growth from 40 days to 32 days in the case of ducks. Also, please see page 13. Here is a dairy farmer's referral. It says, I highly recommend the LTI wet unit to dairymen and farmers to help manage toxic levels of salts, hard minerals, and nitrates, as well as a better value in the feed and rations we feed our cows. I have seen nothing but improvements since using the treated water. In summary, our technology has many benefits, and although it is simple, it delivers tremendous results. I believe the use of our technology, LTI wet, can be of benefit to the agriculture and livestock industry globally. We have recently studied the relationship with a company in Australia called Active 8 Water. Now, I would like to introduce David, who will discuss what is happening in Australia with regard to our water enhancement technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tatsu-san. I've been involved with LTI wet for the last 3 months, and I was very impressed with the white papers and some of the information that I have seen from LTI wet is international partners. We're looking at the Australian market due to our reliance on water in the driest continent on Earth, and we have a lot of significant issues with water quality and lack of water. So I am going to be promoting the water enhancement technology in Australia and New Zealand, particularly in agriculture and livestock, where the government is putting a lot of emphasis on managing our scarce water supplies and using less water. And farmers are obviously looking at using less fertilizers and additives because this will increase their bottom line dramatically. So in Australia, it is a huge agricultural market. We have massive wheat farms and cattle stations. My initial focus is on two areas: livestock trials, and then smaller farms closer to the metropolitan areas. We've engaged the University of Melbourne to trial LTI water enhancement technology in the production of chickens. We've already seen some benefits out of the United States market with regard to chickens, but I'd really like to make sure that we validate that for the Australian and the New Zealand market. At this stage, the trials are set to begin in late October and early November. For anyone around the world, we've got hard lockdown in Melbourne. We're the only city on the planet, I believe, that is still in hard lockdown. So it's making it very difficult to get things done, but we're still trying to push ahead and to meet the time frames for October and early November for livestock trials. I've also recently spoken to some egg manufacturers to see if we can do some tests as well to see if there's an increase in the efficacy of raising chickens for egg production. With regard to horticulture and viticulture trials, I moved from Sydney to Melbourne many years ago. When I moved to Melbourne, I lived in the Yarra Valley, and the Yarra Valley is a very lush region, very good soil quality, renowned for great production. And so the crops that I'm looking at are grapes in the Yarra Valley, tomatoes, which is focused on heirloom tomatoes, so the old-fashioned style of tomato, broccoli and potatoes in Gippsland, which is an area further out of Melbourne, but again, very rich farmland, and a lot of different crops that we can check there. And stone fruit in the Swan Valley in Western Australia. So right across the other side of Australia, Western Australia is known for very sandy, poor quality soils. So any technology that can remediate soil is looked for, and hopefully I'll be able to promote that over in the Western Australian market. So look, I'm really super excited about working with Tatsu and Kenji out of Japan. The technology has been validated, and I'm working to further strengthen that by running some further tests out of the Australian market. But we're very excited about looking at international markets, and I believe that it's the perfect product for particularly markets like India, where perhaps the spending money on capital equipment is not able, not for everyone in the marketplace. So our technology is not hugely expensive. In many cases, it doesn't require a power source if there is an existing water flow. So it's a very exciting opportunity for me and for us to be working together. So I want to thank you for your attention, and we can send a copy of the presentation to anyone after this conference is over. So thank you very much, and best of luck to everyone.
プープみたいなのが2個入ってる。この中に。ここを上下してるのが、一応分かるように入れてますから、多分まだちょっと出てくるから、この黒いやつ。
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Krishna Srinivasan, and I'm one of the founders of FarmSeo Limited. It is my privilege to be able to talk to you about the FarmSeo platform. The presentation is composed of 5 sections. I will start off by introducing FarmSeo and what the solution is about. I will follow this with an outline of the challenges faced by the farming as a profession. I will continue this by talking on how to address these challenges. I will then move on my talk to talk about the platform and its capabilities. I will then conclude by walking through how we can cooperate in the space to make a difference. Originally, Venkatesh Sivaraman and I, the founders of Ansio Group, had started here in the UK. Both of us come from India, from traditional farming families. Though we had spent a significant portion of our careers in information technology, we had always been looking for ways to make a difference to the farming community. That is the reason we had started FarmSeo. FarmSeo, even though it's headquartered in the UK, currently has got a huge R&D team back in India, in Chennai, and the customers are quite far-flung between UK, India, Philippines, Africa, Bangladesh, etc., just to name a few. We developed the platform with a vision to address the need to fruitfully integrate the technology into farming. Thereby, we were looking to empower the farmers and allow them to be able to run farming as a business. This, in our view, is the key step to bring about a change and to ensure that the wider goals of food security and climate resilience can be accomplished. And that is one of the key drivers about FarmSeo. Now, let's move on to talk about the challenges themselves. In this slide, like I mentioned, we are talking about the whole spectrum of challenges that are faced by the farming community in the current time frame. With the increase in global population, the demand for more farm production in an efficient and sustainable way seems to be in the forefront. The farmer, on the other hand, has to contend with climate change, challenges in getting various inputs, including advice, and so many other challenges in this space. One of the other things that we also find is that even though technology has penetrated most of the sectors in the world, it still is not accessible to the average farmer. The farmer also faces inefficiencies with respect to supply chain, which also limits the amount of success that the farming community overall produces. All of these things have sort of prompted us to look towards technology. Having come from an information technology background, it has prompted us to turn towards technology so that we're able to address these items. So, from a technology intervention point of view, this is how we see ourselves being able to make the difference. Firstly, the idea that we had was to make sure that there is effective digitization to bring about changes, both in the pre and post harvest. Once this digitization is done, we need to make sure that appropriate inputs is accessible to the farmer by using technology to connect the dots. Finally, we need to be able to deploy technology to disintermediate the supply chain as well and ensure that the farmer has the necessary connect to the market. This is how we see the intervention playing about, and I will walk through specifically how each of these things will play out in terms of the challenges. So, moving on from here, as I said, the key step is to ensure that we're able to bring the farmer, and the crop information on a digital platform. This is needed to improve both control as well as visibility. Moreover, this step will also bring the decision making closer to the farmer, making the information accessible to him or her. This digitization will be the stepping stone for the success for the subsequent steps. Moving on from the digitization, the next challenge is to make appropriate inputs accessible to the farmer. Even in the current day and age, it is still not possible for the farmers to be having a specific targeted inputs available. And once the digitization is done, we see that as a viable means to be able to target farmers and crops and make the relevant input accessible by leveraging the geography or the susceptibility to weather changes or infestation, and depending on the growth cycle. All of these things, once digitized, makes it possible for us to be able to make the appropriate input available to the customers. Advisory and support would be the next area where we would be able to make a difference. The digitized platform we anticipate will be making it possible to provide targeted advice depending on where the farmers are located and what they have sown and what stage of growth that particular farm is in. We would be able to target specific and precise advice to the customers. Prior to the digitization, this was a real challenge because nearly 70% of the farmers are smallhold farmers, and this sort of technology was not accessible to them. And this is what makes the difference in terms of the advisory support that we will be able to extend to the farmers. Finally, the produce, it should be possible to reach the market at the right time and at the right price. Again, like this is where the digitization as well as the employment of the technology, the power of technology would actually be put to maximum use, so that we are able to predict the time and volume of the produce, which makes the produce itself more valuable to the the consumers as well as the organizations which are looking to procure. So, given all these ways to address the challenges, how does the platform address it? That is what I'm actually walking through in this particular slide. So, keeping in line with the sequence, the first portion that we are focusing on is the digitization, where we work with the farmer organizations, as well as with governmental and non-governmental organizations, so that we're able to translate the farmer, and the crop information into a digital platform. We augment it with geo-plotting and ability to sort of keep track of the various parameters under which the farm is operating, such as the soil, as well as the pest information and what sort of disease infestation has happened. All of this information can be provided as a digital record. And in turn, it is also possible to make this information accessible for traceability and certification purposes. That is what the FarmSio platform brings to the table. Moving on from there, the FarmSio is also capable of providing an effective marketplace for the products and services that the farmers will be using. Once digitized, the FarmSio platform serves as the marketplace for products and services, like I mentioned. And this in turn can be for specific targeted farmers. This could be in the form of seeds, fertilizers, or pesticides. In addition, it could also be specific farming services such as equipment hire, utilities, or insurance. Then moving on from there, the platform also serves as an advisory platform where, based on the satellite, weather input, the IoT devices, all of these things can also be effectively used to provide targeted advisory services to the farmers. Again, like this could be on the basis of growth stage, or it could be on the basis of the geographical location, and it could cover a whole range of activities starting from the pre-harvest to the post-harvest stage. So this platform effectively provides an effective platform for that. Last but not least, the platform also provides the ability to uses technology to be able to one, traceability as well as in terms of yield prediction. Both these things combined together effectively makes sure that the organization or the customers buying the produce have got sufficient confidence in terms of the produce itself, effectively becoming an active market connect and a place where you would be able to source the products and produce from the farmers directly. In conclusion, these are the farm. In conclusion, the FarmSeo digitizes the farm and crop information, and it provides a solid platform to augment and market products and services to the farmers.